Hello, Ames Chamber of Commerce members. This is Drew Camp here for your February 7th weekly legislative update. Now that we're in the legislative session, there's just really three big items that I want to touch on today in our weekly update. And it's Invest in Iowa, and that's the governor's big plan to expand the sales tax by 1 cent and what that all entails. And then also Future Ready Iowa, which is really the preeminent workforce development bill going through the legislature right now. And then also the licensing bill. I'll touch on that just really quick. So as we start with Invest in Iowa, this is the biggest bill that we anticipate seeing this year come out in the legislature. And it's the 1 cent sales tax increase that would then go to tax relief and funding of Iowa water and land legacy and some other natural resource and outdoor recreation projects. Just want to touch really quickly on some of the key provisions with the Invest in Iowa Act, which we finally saw some legislation this week come out, so we have formal information as to what this all will entail. With regards to tax relief, which really relates to the business climate within our priorities, it will cut individual income tax by 10% on average in 2021. It would then lower the highest individual tax rate from 8.5% to 5.5% by 2023. It would reduce the number of individual income tax brackets from 9 to 8 in 2021 and further reduce it to 4 brackets in 2023. It would reduce property taxes by lowering the per capita county mental health levy from $47.28 to $12.50, resulting in the lowering of the maximum statewide mental health levy by $77.1 million. One thing that I have mentioned in the past in talking to some of our providers and partners within the mental health and human service industry is that won't be constitutionally protected, so we will want to monitor that piece of that mental health funding. It will repeal the water excise tax. It will exempt diapers and feminine hygiene products from sales tax, and it will increase the early childhood development and child and dependent care tax credits by doubling the maximum net income amount for eligibility from $45,000 to $90,000, which is another one of our big priorities, that being child care. And then with IWIL, or the Iowa Water and Land Legacy, which is the money that would go towards natural recreation and outdoor, recreation and outdoor the Natural Resources and Outdoor Recreation Trust Fund. I apologize, that is always a mouthful. $99.5 million will be committed to water quality efforts that include gray infrastructure for water and sewer. $52.3 million will be allocated to conservation and recreation. Adjustments to the Iowa Code of Chapter 461 will be proposed to acknowledge the nutrient reduction strategy, which is largely housed here at Iowa State University, as the foundation of the state's water quality efforts, and ensure periodic reviews of the code are conducted to comply with the most current evidence-based practices and policies, which once again goes back to that nutrient reduction strategy housed here at Iowa State. And projects with a recreational purpose would be overseen by the Iowa Economic Development Authority, something we would be happy to see. So think of things like the Vision Iowa and the community attraction and tourism funds that they already administer. It would kind of fall under that portfolio. We've always had a good experience with them working with the Economic Development Authority on bills such as that, so we would favor that as well. One thing I do want to touch on as well when we look at some of that natural resource funding, the funds in the Natural Resource Trust Fund, it doesn't alter the formula, but it would add additional policy language around each of the areas and change the amount going into certain portions. We'll be looking at that and what that entails and what those portions and those changes are. But right now, that's just something we certainly want to be noting, and we'll have continued conversations about moving forward this session. When we look at Future Ready Iowa, there was actually 2 subcommittee meetings in the House and Senate yesterday, Senate in the morning, House in the afternoon. And with us being the lowest metropolitan statistical area for unemployment rate, this is definitely a bill we are always in favor of. It's always one of our top priority bills. I went down and spoke in favor of the bill at the House committee. I was not able to make the Senate one, but I was able to go speak in favor of it at the House committee subcommittee meeting. Some key provisions we want to touch on is we are supportive of the Future Ready Iowa Apprenticeship Training Program in Division 1, the Iowa Child Care Challenge Fund, which is that fund going from the Employer Innovation Fund to go towards construction and renovation and assistance with child care facilities, in Division 2 of the policy. Division 4 also touches on computer science instruction. That's something with a lot of IT, and that being information technology being one of our key targeted industries. That's something we want to continue to see grow. Division 5, the work-based learning coordinator, we think that will be very beneficial as we get people trained in some of the key areas and sectors that are in need of workforce. And then also Division 6, the Future Ready Iowa Skilled Workforce Last Dollar Scholarship Program updates. That's been very successful. We want to continue to see that grow and be successful going forward. So we are specifically in favor of all of those pieces. One thing to note within that subcommittee, 2 of the divisions, Division 3, which is the Workforce Diploma Pilot Program, and Division 4, the Computer Science Instruction Program, were talked about quite a bit. The Workforce Diploma Pilot Program was brought up by the community colleges, and computer science instruction largely by the school districts. And the reason they noted that is they just want to make sure that they're looking out that if they're expected to provide additional resources, that it's accommodated for within whether it be their funding or their programmatic policy bills, that they're able to accommodate and be able to add those provisions without it being an undue burden on them. So that's conversations that will continue to happen outside of the subcommittee and committee meetings. But those are 2 things I wanted to flag for sure. And we know that those will be kind of getting resolved as we move forward with that bill. But we don't see that necessarily being a huge issue. Future Ready Iowa has always been a very, very bipartisan issue as it's been seen the last couple sessions. The last bill I want to touch on is the licensing bill. And what that really is it allows professional licenses to transfer between states except for teachers and attorneys. And we just think that would make us more competitive in the workplace, especially if you think about a trailing spouse, for example. That could be something that could be very beneficial as you come and have your license transfer between the states. There's a subcommittee on that on the 11th, and we'll continue to monitor that bill as it moves forward in the legislature. So as you can see, there are some very big items starting to come together with the Invest in Iowa Act, the Future Ready Iowa Act, and the licensing bill just this week. Next week, we do anticipate seeing kind of a negative bill come forward with RFRA, and the reason that is really negative goes back to the talent piece and the business climate piece. It can make it very hard to attract and retain talent when you have those kinds of bills coming up in the legislature. So I will be down to speak against the Religious Freedom Restoration Act bill next week. And we'll talk more about that next week when we do our legislative update on the 14th. So with that will conclude what we have to talk about for the week of February 7th down under the Golden Dome. But please do come back and see us next week, as we do plan to have quite a few significant updates on some of these bills and many others going forward with the legislative session. Thanks, and have a nice weekend.